There's a thesis that we have right now that the closer that we get to interacting with computing, the way we're going to interact with the world, the more powerful the experience becomes, basically. And so when you think of like, Felix Baumgartner, jumping out of a hot air balloon and watching that YouTube video, right? Like that's pretty cool. But if you could actually have a first-person view of that and feel like what that was like to jump out, that's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool experience. But when you start looking at like real utility cases, we look at something as fundamental as Google Maps. And Google Maps is something that's driven fundamentally in your hand today. You hold it up as your phone, you have a blue dot, you follow that blue dot telling you where to go. But what if you literally had something that could then overlay, use your phone as a magic window, as an experience to help you walk through the space that you're in, go through space. These are experiences, right? Whether you see or use. And so, but why does this all matter, right? It goes back to the fundamental mission statement. I like what Cindy was talking about the Oculus mission statement. Google mission statement, organizing the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful, right? We're taking one word out of this and we're replacing it with experiences. That's what our mission is. That's what the Daydream team's mission is, organizing the world's experiences and making them universally accessible and useful. That's really kind of what we've been standing by since we started. When you look at kind of like the paradigm shift, and so there's a lot of reasons to be doing VR and AR right now. There's entertainment aspects. I'll talk a little bit more about that. There's utility aspects, enterprise. I love what some of the speakers have shared on some of the stuff. I thought that HR use case was great. But it's a lot of these things right now, and the reason Google is doing this, I think the same reason why you have Facebook, HTC, Microsoft, Samsung, all these big companies stepping into this is, it's not just one of those things, it's all of these things. This is the future of computing, right? This is where we start from the first mainframe PC computers to the first smartphones to now where we are with the first HMDs, the first AR-enabled devices, phones and headsets. It's an evolution of computing that has always been defined by also touch input, keyboards, touch screens, and now kind of your hands and what you can see and feel and touch. And we really believe that. It also kind of is core to a lot of what we've been announcing recently, Google I/O in terms of like the assistant, even Google Lens and things like that, object recognition. So we're really seeing this as kind of like the future of computing at its core. But obviously, I'm sure everybody in this room has seen this slide before. It's not because I like to compare this to the mobile industry per se. I started my career in the mobile industry. And it's been great to watch. I put the first ringtones and wallpapers. I put the first video on mobile phones. And I love seeing, from a content perspective, all the same questions that are being asked today around, how are we going to monetize this? Do people really want to watch this stuff? Does it really make sense? All those things were being asked when we were doing this back. So it's not necessarily meant to be like, the same to compare it to the mobile industry. But obviously, I think we all recognize that we're still at very early days of the start of very powerful technology that we think is going to be, kind of moving at light speed to get to, the right form factors, the right technology that we can kind of scale it. But so where did we start? Where did Google start, right? We started on the VR side with Cardboard. And I'm going to talk about VR a little bit because it leads into to our AR efforts. But we started with Cardboard. Cardboard was a 20% project at Google. If you know 20% projects, little side projects people work on. But we basically were like, hey, you've got a mobile phone. We think we can use this to make a pretty cool VR device using 2 lenses and a cardboard box, and it became kind of an instant hit. We've been able to scale a lot of these experiences. Kind of came up at the same time that Oculus was coming out and other kind of VR devices, and so it was kind of a great complement to scale and kind of what you could do. Obviously, not even on the scale of some of the more immersive devices, certainly Oculus, Vive, and things like that. But we're really proud of the fact that Cardboard has been probably 90% of the world's first introduction to VR. Probably the first time they've seen a 360 video. That we did a huge distribution with the New York Times. We've been able to kind of scale that out. And if people have seen a Cardboard, seen that experience for the first time, and then went on to buy a Gear VR, went on to buy an Oculus Rift, awesome, right? Like at this point, it's about mass proliferation. We've been able to do that with Cardboard. But it was, it's approachable, small, bite-sized experiences. Next, we took our learnings from Cardboard, and we moved to Daydream. And we announced Daydream a year ago at Google I/O. And we launched Daydream 6 months ago. It felt like 6 years, but it's been 6 months. And it's essentially the next step, next evolution. Similar of putting your phone into your headset, into a headset, using that as your VR device. But two major things happened. Well, we optimized a lot of the phones. We made them better. We purposely made cardboard without a head strap because when you put it up to your face, the phone was not optimized for VR. It would make you sick. It would have high latency. It wasn't, the right performance that we wanted. But we made those optimizations. When we did, we were able to add a head strap. And when you add a head strap, an amazing thing happens. You get your hands. And when you get your hands, we felt it was important to put a little input in your hand because that's next generation again in this generation of input and kind of touch. So Daydream's been awesome. We've got 8 phones in the market. We announced Samsung and LG phones coming to the market. Samsung's coming very soon. LG will come out later this summer with their flagship phones. So we're really scaling out ubiquity of VR through mobile devices. But at I/O, we also just announced a new breed of headset, standalone devices, which we're really excited about. It's kind of like a class in itself when you think about. I'll say this real quickly. I think like there's a untapped market that we see across the entire VR industry, from Google to Facebook to everybody, which is iPhone users. iPhone users previously have only been able to either decide to switch out of their phone to get a Pixel or a Samsung, probably don't want to do that, or they go buy a $2,000 PC, Vive, etc. So they need something that's properly priced, somewhere in the hundreds of dollars, that they can just pick up, put on, very simple. It's, iPhone users are tech adopters, disposable income, millennial. It's the sweet spot of what we want, and I think we're going to be able to tap into that with standalones. But HTC announced these are going to be powered by Daydream, powered by Google, so using the Android kind of philosophy there. And Vive HTC is building a headset, and Lenovo is going to build a headset. But why is this important now, kind of leaning back to AR and why we're here? Well, one of the things we've been so excited and working so hard with is Tango, which I'll talk about in a second. But the key thing that we're doing with the standalone devices is introducing positional head tracking. And the way that we do positional head tracking is having cameras that are going to be positioned on the device that basically see the world. And so what we announced is WorldSense. And WorldSense is essentially using our Tango technology, what we put years into developing, so that we can now have a way to sense and map the room. The speaker was talking about mapping the room, and with the Tango phone, this is exactly what we're doing with the WorldSense device. So in this kind of demo here, you see basically this would be your virtual screen of what you're seeing, but the device is tracking and seeing a bunch of different points in space that are tracking and seeing and showing you kind of a 6-stop positional track of where you are. And so we're really excited to be able to leverage this great technology and then put these into these new VR headsets. So that's why I started with this. Now we segue into Tango, right? And so we're super excited because the difference in VR and AR is that VR is going to teleport you somewhere, right? VR is going to take you somewhere. It's going to be an experience. You're going to go and you're going to do something. Whereas AR is bringing information to you. It's giving you this ability to have a phone, a device right there in front of you and magically have things pop up right in front of you that weren't there, right? And so we love the idea of entertainment being core use cases for VR. There are enterprise use cases that we've been thinking about. But when you think of the scale then of kind of where AR and Tango goes, we immediately jump into the enterprise level. So again, a lot of these use cases that we've been talking today, it immediately becomes this very tangible, very useful, and we go back to mission statement. It's using those experiences to make them accessible and useful to the world. And so we have 2 devices right now. We have too many phones in my pocket. We've got the Lenovo Fab 2 Pro, which was our first Tango-enabled device. And we also have the Asus Zenfone that's coming out momentarily. It's going to be sold in Verizon stores. We're really excited. Asus really got behind this device. Others are getting behind this device. We're trying to scale the ecosystem of OEMs that support the Tango technology. And so you might be asking, what is it? Well, basically at its core, we're adding hardware to mobile phones. We're adding a depth sensing camera, a motion tracker, and there's then things inside that are doing stuff on the vision processing, location tracking, things like that. But essentially, there's a change to adding hardware, material design to the phones. And in the case of a Lenovo device, you've got extra camera, extra sensor, here. And it allows you then to do 3 very core things. The first is motion tracking. You can walk around a space and it can literally track exactly where you're going. It knows as if it's GPS, you're walking through and you go this way and then turn and move around. It depth senses, so it can tell where objects are. That's the core piece, right? That's the core piece in everything, and it's very exciting what Apple announced and others are announcing, what HoloLens does well, but you have to have this depth sensing camera that allows you to understand where space is. It understands where the floor is versus where the wall is in the ceiling, so that you can accurately put things and map things to spaces and make them actually look and feel real. And then the third thing, of course, is area learning, and that's the key part. So the other example, again, when the speaker was talking about, kind of moving around the object and then kind of going over here and doing something, but then coming back and the object was still there. That's the area learning piece. And that is true for anything. We can map this building right now, do a bunch of different things, leave here, go to your thing, go home, come back, and it would still know and be here, and your objects would still be remembered, which is a really core and important thing when you think about kind of mass scale, which I'll talk about in a second. But these 3 things essentially give you the magic window to the world, right? And so it allows you to do some really cool things where you're using your phone to now magically bring information, bring things that would otherwise not be there in front of you, and give you a really rich, immersive experience, and really useful experiences. And so, there's basic things that we've done in museums. There's a lot of really cool projects we've seen where art students and art projects have come to make virtual objects, 3D objects, things like that. But I think one of the things that we're really super excited about, and a little different from stuff that you see kind of Facebook, Snapchat leaning into, is on the enterprise level, right? Kind of what is core to Google and what makes really core sense. And that is instead of the ability to kind of map using GPS, with satellites and things like that, we announced VPS, virtual positioning service, visual positioning service, that essentially is doing what you can do with GPS in this world inside with data points using a Tango phone. And so again, when you think about like what is core to Google in search and maps and things that are defensible assets that we have, this makes a lot of sense. And so the use case that I love to talk about is this one from Lowe's. We worked really closely with them, and this is like a concept that I've talked about for I think over a year in terms of like the early days, more than 2, over a year. When I first kind of found out about Tango and the power of what it could be, I really started understanding this as like the ability to map and see and do things that you can't do today. And so with Lowe's, essentially we are mapping stores nationwide, right? We did a few different examples, but it's basically walking into Lowe's stores, walking through the aisles, doing a quick map. What you see here are something like 1,100 data points that are being mapped all around the entire, maybe more, 11,000 data points that are being mapped around the store. But it's basically creating a virtual map of every single aisle, okay? And then what this basically does is a really incredible thing. So simple, but really incredible. When you think about today, typing into, hey, I want to go buy a hammer, okay? Your phone will tell you exactly how to get to Lowe's. It will pull up Google Maps. It will tell you, okay, now get in your car and go here and do that. And then you walk up to the front door of Lowe's and you stop. And you're like, okay, I guess I don't know how to get my hammer. It might be, employee, excuse me, can you help me? Where's the hammer? Aisle 5, okay. What we're doing now is allowing you to walk into the store and literally walk down the aisle. We've mapped the entire place using data from the store, using our data, and being able to take people exactly to where they need to go. This is one core example. Imagine our ability to map every single space and every single, CVS stores, everything that you're needing, items, objects, things like that. This is really powerful stuff. This makes a lot of sense when you think about kind of just our simple ability to navigate the world that we're in. And this is all using the power of Tango and AR, and these are these fundamental use cases that I think, like, I always talked about this way back as well, as like the first iPhone that launched, which is now on its 10th anniversary, right? The first iPhone was launched without GPS, right? And that first iPhone, no one knew, it's not like GPS didn't exist. It existed, it's been existing for 20, 30 years. No one knew what to do with it, right? And so you remove GPS from people's phones today, I literally think people would die on the streets, right? But imagine, I think we can imagine a world where like this technology is getting embedded into everybody's phones and people will say, oh, remember when there was no Tango, AR, what do you want to call it? That technology in your phones, right? So fundamental. We can say, remember when there was no GPS in your phone? Remember when we didn't get around by mapping our worlds through our phones? I remember that. It was very hard, right? So these are the type of things, I've always said that like, this is like really powerful stuff that can unlock some next generation stuff for us. So this is one of the first areas that we're really, really leaning hardcore into with Tango. We announced this at Google I/O. We're going to be expanding this further through mobile phones, and we're really excited about that. One thing that I want to follow up with, and it's perfect coming from what Cindy was talking about, an area that's been really, really near dear to our hearts is education. And we've been very, very lucky. So we constantly talk about two gifts that keep on giving, right? There's cardboard, gift that keeps on giving, and there's expeditions, right? It keeps getting talked about. People love it. It's accessible. It's easy. It's simple. Expeditions has been delivered to over 2 million students around the world, US, UK, other countries around the world. And it's been very, very successful. It's proven to be, like a really great combination of learning and VR and students kind of collaborating. It's social. It's just amazing. We've got videos galore and testimonials galore, and it's been great. We said to ourselves, we've seen such success in VR. There's got to be, a way to introduce AR into the classroom. I want to roll a quick video, and then I'll talk about this quickly. But do I just hit play?
All right, who wants to see a volcano? 3, 2, 1. Whoa! Look at that lava, look at that smoke coming out of that.
Pretend you're an airplane and fly over the tornado.
That's the top of it.
What do you see?
It's either asteroids, meteorites.
We're learning about DNA and genes, things that we can't see. And so the most exciting thing for me with the AR technology was that I could see kids get an aha moment that I couldn't get by just telling them about it.
The minute I saw it pop up on the screen, it made me want to get up and walk to it.
We actually get to turn around and look at things from all angles, so it gave us a nice perspective.
See if you can figure out what that might be based on what you know about the respiratory system.
I got to see where the alveoli branched off, and I could look inside them and see how everything worked, which I never saw before, and it was really, really cool.
Back to our message. It's kind of, so we're lucky again, the gift that keeps on giving for Expeditions. It allows us to kind of bring what's core back into classrooms and do this brand new thing. But I mean, like, it's so amazing and magical to watch kids use all these devices and use them as magic windows to bring information to them, and they're doing it socially. You saw them, they're walking around, they're all got their own devices, and they're all seeing the exact same object. The teacher is controlling and seeing what they're doing and showing them things. It's, it's really incredible stuff. And what's important is that, like we see with Expeditions on the VR side, this is the generation. We talk about this being early tech. It is early tech. It's early tech because it takes time. It's physical. That we have a physicality issue. It's taking time for us to get hardware into people's lives, right? That it can't just happen overnight, right? There's only so many fundamental devices and phones that you can make, and then you're dealing with people's decision making on buying, especially with mobile phones, where it's like, hey, there's a brand new Tango device in the Verizon store. Cool. I just bought a phone 6 months ago. Probably not going to buy another phone for another 18 months, right? So it's like we're still fighting through a lot of this, but like, more that we get these things into the right places, and we think that students and learning, these are kids that come home and tell their parents, hey, go get me a phone that does AR. And do you know about this? And they teach their parents, and then everybody starts learning. And we are kind of like at the upper echelon of knowing what's going on in this world right now. We are the 0.001%, right? But this is what matters. This is what we need to get to. This is what we all want to get to, so that we can actually put a lot of these, work and hard work and use cases to real life in the future. So really excited to be here. I think it's a great conference. Everybody, really, really, smart people. I'm honored to be around. And please keep up the great work, everybody. Let's keep up the good fight. Thank you so much.